Dear students, welcome to our lesson today, Project Part 2, Module 2. Learning Objectives. Our learning objective today is to write a story using past simple and past progressive. Now I want you to open your student book, page 25, and your workbook, page 19. In the previous lesson, we learned the elements of the story. We had a view about it. Now today, let's revise the elements of the story together. Okay, story starts with excellent. The title of the story, good. Next, we have the setting, time and place. The time shows when the story happened and the place where the story happened. Excellent. Next, we have the characters. The characters are people, animals, objects, whom the story is about. Good. Next, we have the plot, how the story goes, or the events. Good. Mainly, the plot is about the events. Next, we have the problem and the solution, plus the ending. Remember these elements when you write your own story. Start with the title of the story. Remember the place and the time, the characters. You should know the characters carefully. The plot. When you write your events, start with yes, the beginning, yes, and the middle. Then, so the event should be sequenced. Should be 1, 2, 3, yes. The problem and the solution. Yes, the problem. What is the most interesting something in the story happened? And the solution is how everything is solved. The ending is the last thing you write in your story. So, like, for example, they lived happily ever after. Yes, we were happy. It was nice occasion, and these things. So you should be careful when you write your own story. Take these points in your mind. Don't forget it. Dear students, in activity number 1, workbook, page 19, we have this story, okay? So, we want now to point out the elements of the story in this story. I want you to read it quickly just to have a point of view about this story, okay? Now, let's remember together the elements of the story. Number 1, the title. Excellent. What is the title of the story? Good. The noise from upstairs. This is the title. It's at the beginning of the story and it is, yes, distinguished. It is obvious. It's bold. Next, we have the setting, time and a place. Time. When did the story happen? And the place where the story happened. Here on Saturday afternoon. Excellent. This is what? This is the time. Amazing. And the place? Good. My house. Next, we have the characters, people, animals, objects, whom the story is about. So, what are the characters here? Excellent. Number 1, we have Khalid. Next, we have I, the narrator, who writes the story. Next, we have Ali, his friend. And then we have my parents. And we have last Indigo, the parrot. It's an animal. Next element is the plot, how the story goes or the events. Here we have strange noise and someone crying. So this is the major event in the story. Next, we have the problem and the solution. So the problem, the boy was crying, and the solution, what happened? My dad caught the parrot and put it back in its cage. This is the solution and the ending. We were happy. My parents came home when they did. Good. So I want you now to read with me this story. Let's read it together. The noise from upstairs. On Saturday afternoon, my younger cousin Khalid came to my house. I showed him my parrot, Indigo. He loved it. He spent all the afternoon playing with it and taking photos of it. At around 9, Khalid fell asleep upstairs, and my friend Ali came to my house. We decided to watch a new DVD. All of a sudden, we heard a strange noise and someone crying. "It's Khalid," I shouted. We were walking up the stairs when something flew at us, and we saw Khalid at the top of the stairs crying and saying, "Stop, stop." We didn't know what was happening. At the moment, my parents walked in and turned on the lights. Then we saw Indigo land on top of the bookcase. My dad caught the parrot and put it back in its cage. We were happy. My parents came home when they did. Good. Now let's move to the next activity together. Please remember, you have questions about this story in your workbook. You can answer these questions easily. So you can pause the video, answer these questions, so we can move to the next activity. Let's move now to the next activity together. Before we move to activity 2 and start writing our own story, let's remember together the writing tip we took in previous lesson. Here we have 3 points to bear in mind. Number 1, use the past simple to describe where you were and when. Yes, don't forget to use time expressions. Time expressions are very important, like yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, last Monday, last week, last weekend, etc. We have many others. For example, last weekend, I visited my grandparents. The second point, use the past progressive. Why? To describe background scene and story. For example, it was raining and we were running in the forest. And the third point, use when and while to talk about a specific point in time when something happened. For example, we were in the park when it started raining. While we were playing in the park, it started raining. Now I want you to point out on activity number 1 these writing tips. I want you to read again the past simple, the past progressive, and point out where you can find when or while. It's very important for you because through this you could know how to use them in your own story when you write your own story. For example, let's take example from paragraph number 1. On Saturday afternoon, my younger cousin Khalid came to my house. Came is simple past. Excellent. It's verb 2 of come. I showed him my parrot. I showed him. Showed is simple past too. Okay? Let's move on. He spent all the afternoon playing with it. Spent. So here the narrator describes something happened in the past. And he used time expressions. On Saturday afternoon. Good. Now I want you to bear these points in your mind so you can write successfully your own story. Now let's move to activity number 2. Complete the story map below with the elements of your own story. Okay? Number 1. What is the title of the story? We want to choose a title. Good. For example, I want to talk about something happened with me in the past. I lost my brother, so the title I can choose, Lost in the Park. When and where did the events take place? For example, the Central Park of the city. And the time, once upon a time, last weekend, last year, years ago, anytime you choose to write your own story. Next, who were with you? Yes, the character is excellent. For example, I was with my family. Next, what happened? Good, the events. My younger brother was lost and not found in the park. Okay, what happened in the end? Yes, this is the solution. The security guard found my brother outside the park. As you can see, this is a plan to plan our own story. Before writing a story, you should have a vision, an idea about the elements that you are going to write about. For example, the title, when and where, the place, who were with you, the characters, what happened, the problem and the events, what happened in the end, the solution. Now I want you to pause the video and write the elements of your own story. Just like that. This is just an example. Now let's move to activity 3 in your workbook, page 19. Use your own ideas from activity 2 to write a story in your notebook. Use the past simple and the past progressive. What is the title of the story? Excellent. Lost in the Park. Now, let's write together. Once upon a time, I went with my family to the Central Park of the city. We saw a magnificent sights and views that have many shapes and colors. While I was playing with my younger brother, my mom called me to help her preparing our lunch. I left my younger brother behind and went to help her, as I was too much hungry. After that, my mom asked me to go back and bring my younger brother with me to have our lunch together. Unfortunately, I didn't find him in the place that I left him in, so I was shocked and afraid. Then I started shouting and calling him loudly. At the same time, I was running fast and looking for him around fearfully. I realized that we lost him and not finding him anywhere in the park. So I ran to my mom to tell her what happened. She was shocked too. And then we went to the park's security guards to tell them about what happened to my younger brother and to help us finding him around. We didn't find him in the park, the security guard said. So that my mom started crying and the guard went out the park trying to find him any elsewhere. Luckily, the guard found him outside the park. My mom hugged my brother and blamed him not to lift us one more time. Excellent. Now I want you to use your own ideas. Plan your story, starting from the title, yes, the setting, time and place, the plot, the characters, and the problem and solution. Write your own story at home, yes, in your notebook. I know you can do it. Excellent. Thank you.